There is a new rule in Warhammer 40,000 that Games Workshop is trying out. Now this could be a rule coming later in this edition, in say a mission pack, or it could be something that's trialed for 11th edition. We know that Games Workshop always tries out their rules before they come out in the actual edition, and we've seen a lot of that in the past, just not necessarily being trialed in 40k. There were reactions in Horus Heresy, and then in 40k 10th edition we have Overwatch, which is in the movement phase as an optional action, and we have stratagems that give move reactions like Squad Tactics. And I've been saying since the start of the edition that Age of Sigmar 3rd edition is a lot like 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000. So this is the new rule. We have the limited resources rule. So at the start of the battle, for each datasheet included in a player's army, but not Battleline and not dedicated transports, if you have included that unit more than once, then your opponent gets 5 victory points for free for each time that datasheet is included beyond the first. So if you included 3 Basilisks and 3 Rough Rider units, that would be 20 victory points given to your opponent before anything has happened in the game, though it does cap out at 40 victory points. You're paying for duplicates. It's an attempt to stop spamming certain units that are very particularly powerful, as you will then have to decide, is having say 2 units of Warp Talons worth giving away 5 victory points to your opponent? And this isn't like in 9th edition where you would have a command point tax, where for every detachment you included you paid a cost. These are actual end of game victory points. If you want to know where to find this rule, it was in White Dwarf 499, and while it's only for one mission at the moment, it could be an attempt to see how far it would work. It would really suck for the Leagues of Votann and the World Eaters players, who have a really small roster and can't help but have multiple of the same units, unless you're going to go really heavy on the Hearthkin or really heavy on the Khorne Berserkers. It can also be problematic if you want to focus down onto one particular detachment, and it isn't a general detachment like the Gladius Task Force. The Chaos Cult detachment is rather difficult to run if there's going to be penalties for taking more than one accursed cultist unit. That's going to be annoying, but an Armoured Assault Imperial Guard army would be okay because their Leman Russ tanks are all given their own separate datasheet. So there are positives to this as a rule if it came into mainstream 40k. People would stop feeling like they have to buy lots of one unit to be meta, and tournaments would be better for it. Think of the Necron meta from a few months back. It's several Catan and Immortals and Plasmancers. Now you would have to diversify your Catan to be different kinds, so you could have the Deceiver, you could then have a Transcendent Catan and the Void Dragon, but you wouldn't be able to have multiple Transcendent Catan. And though you could take lots of Immortals, as they are Battleline, you would have to pay a victory point penalty if you took a 2nd or 3rd Plasmancer. You take the Plasmancers so that they have their lethal hits or sustained hits activating on a 5+ instead of a 6+. It's very powerful. And this rule would be a good way of balancing some of the OP tactics that you see in tournaments, though Leagues of Votann and World Eaters would be exempt from this, unless perhaps the World Eaters were to get more general access to the Chaos Space Marine units, and they could have Bikers and Raptors and all of the other units that the Chaos Space Marines have. Hi. Present day Von Carmian here. Though I recorded this video a couple of days ago and thought it was a possible but not super likely that this rule would become mainstream, we have just seen the announcement of the Pariah Nexus Mission Deck, which has a bigger focus on Battleline units. Mission rules that let Battleline units score victory points, and expected are secondary missions that give more victory points if completed by a Battleline unit. So that is another way to make Battleline more of the core of the army that they should be. A victory point cost to your opponent for taking lots of non-Battleline units is another. But I thought that generally Battleline units have been done well in 10th edition. In past editions the Battleline units were called troops, and force organisation charts, especially between 3rd and 6th edition, 7th edition had formations, you had to take troops to have a legal army. So for a lot of players, troops were considered as a tax you had to pay to put the army you wanted on the field. This edition, Battleline units have great rules. Guardians and Sisters of Battle generate dice for their respective faction rule. There are sticky objectives on Intercessors, Cultist Mobs and Cadian Shock Troops, so you control an objective just because they touched it. And they are Battleline units. There are bonuses to the save if you hold an objective with Battleline units such as the Heavy Intercessors and the Imperial Guard infantry squads. So mission cards focusing on Battleline units maybe wasn't needed, but has generally been well received. Do you think the Pariah Nexus Battleline focus is good? Do you think that this is a good rule you would like to see? Let me know in the comments, because when we think of Games Workshop, the company that wants to make money, they may want to bring this rule into mainstream 40k because it doesn't force but massively encourages people to buy more toys. You might have a completed army, but if putting it on the table gives your opponent 15 victory points before you start, you might want to buy other kinds of units to add to your faction. Suddenly, everyone is being pushed into buying one of every kind of unit. As a sales tactic, it works. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that this becomes a mainstream rule, and talk around it has been limited. What there has been was in praise of the idea. It may be coming to a mission pack or crusade book, or an edition in the future as Games Workshop tries out more rules like this. You know, the rules that get more money for them. Do you think I'm way off with this idea? Or, much like in 9th edition how the Imperial Guard tanks were given the ability to shoot while in combat, that too became a mainstream rule for 10th edition that you can check out here. My darlings and viewers, have a great day understanding the future of 40k.